A good afternoon to all the viewers, and welcome to Wild Earth live at the watering hole. And this afternoon we're starting off at Tembe Elephant Park in Maputoland, right up in the northern part of the South African KwaZulu-Natal province, where it looks like an overcast and very, very beautifully green day. I am Jaapie Potgieter, and I am going to be your host for this afternoon. And I'm very, very excited to see what interactions and what characters we might get to see come down to the water's edge. Now for now it looks like we've just got some very relaxed impala. Doesn't look like there's any pressing matters on their side. You can see most of them even have their heads down, except one or two of the young ones. There's one laying down on the far right there. So that looks like there's not any reason for concern around this watering hole this afternoon. But I can see it looks like there's quite a bit of activity around. It looks like animals have been up and down on the banks here, the elephants especially. And we can see that nice thick green mat of grass all around. So a perfect little spot for the grazing animals too. Got both water and good food currently. Have a look, just nibbling away. We can see tails going. I'm sure there's quite a bit of insect activity around them. And I would like to remind our viewers that this is a live and interactive show, so you can send through any questions you might have. You can send it directly to Wild TV/questions, or you can scan the QR code at the bottom right of the screen, and in that way also you can send anything you want to know about, anything you'd like me to talk about, or any comments. You can also join us on X, and you can use #WildEarth. And you can also post some comments there. And indeed, I do like the questions. That's the way I learn. I certainly don't know all the answers. Oh, there we go. There's an elephant. Another elephant. Two elephants and a woolly-necked stork. Looks like two quite large elephants, that. Penelope Kenyon. Good afternoon to you too. We say hello to Wild Earth, Jaapie, Mika, and the other watchers. And it will indeed be another wonderful time this afternoon. We start out with elephants, especially a beautiful elephant bull. Like this one closest to us. It can only be a wonderful afternoon. Mercedes Bean, greetings to you from the whole Wild Earth crew, and a happy Sunday to you too. Now what I find quite interesting here is you can see that the elephant is just loosening some soil. They seem very, very relaxed, especially the one in the shade under the tree there. I can see this area has had rain recently. You can see all the disturbed sandy patches. And some of these holes got dug quite a lot deeper. And it looks like it's quite wet there, so I'm assuming that the area is, or the soil's been quite saturated with water after the rains, well enough for the elephants to reach it by digging. And we often find that the elephants might dig holes just around the edges, near holes, and try and access drinking water from there. Just as it's filtered through the sand, it's a little bit more clean and less used than that in the pan itself. You can see this elephant's got a rather lazy attempt at sanding itself, just grabbing small trunk tipfuls of bundles and just throwing it underneath its belly. It looks like it's been drinking or attempting to drink there at the water inlet. Now I'm assuming that with all the rain here, there's also some debris and some plant matter that's been washed down into the water sources, and maybe another reason why they're digging on the edge. Rosie Adams, hello to you too. And Sandy Franklin, I've also got my fingers crossed for a great afternoon this afternoon, and I think I've got a good feeling about it. The beautiful elephant bull, you can see he's just investigating the dung from what looks like another elephant. And probably just trying to determine who was here, how long ago. Might as well try to see what's been happening around here. Now you can see this elephant's got very, very large tusks. I see the one on the left hand side has been worn down quite a bit, more so than the one on the right. But this looks like quite a nice mature elephant. And this time of the year, especially these bull elephants do tend to look for the herds and for any potential females that might be in heat. Just have a look at that. He used his foot to help him pick up that loose. I'm trying to compress it a little bit, and that way it might aid the elephant in its aim to the right spots. Or maybe a little bit of energy to spare. But it's interesting to watch him. He's like going through the area as he's covering himself with some sand. And he's also investigating all the diggings, all the little spots. I can see that brown patch there right in front of the elephant. Looks like a large patch where dung was completely broken down and flattened by the creatures like the dung beetles. So he is digging there as well. Maybe he's looking for specific soil patches, but he's definitely got more on his mind than just covering himself with soil. but it looks like it was a very, very busy period at some point in the last day or so. Have a look at that little wallow next to the water there. You can see this animal's covered well with mud on the back, so I think he's got that side covered with from the sun. Even though it's overcast, the sun's rays can be very harsh, even for an elephant on a day like this. But that might be why it's focusing on the belly. You can see covering areas behind the ears. I find it amazing. This elephant's moving around, investigating, throwing sand all over him. I think he might also just be doing it as he pleases due to maybe some biting or flying insects pestering him, more so as a deterrent, direct deterrent, um, and covering up with it. How that sand would stick too well. Although it looks quite damp, so maybe. The other elephant under the tree is a little bit more relaxed. I think he's got quite a bit to keep himself occupied there. Who knows? Maybe they might have moved from quite far this morning or in the last few days. Last little while, when the rains come in, these elephants certainly start to move all over areas, move back to areas they haven't been to for a while, and also go look for herds. Herds might be traveling, there's food everywhere now, water's readily available in surface puddles. When these larger elephant bulls move, they cover quite a bit of distance. So when they find a little oasis like this beautiful watering hole here at Tembe, I'm sure they spend a little while and relax, like you're seeing that one at the back doing. And even this big guy in front seems relaxed, just carefully scoping the area out. You can see he's literally, like, his trunk is following all over what seems to me looks like tracks of other elephants. And while he is covering himself with mud and sand, he's getting a whiff of the scent of others that move through. Sandy Franklin, you asked how a bull would know if a female elephant is in the heat. So, oh, sorry, I am making a mistake. This is from Animal Lover. Animal Lover, you asking how this bull might know the female is in heat. Now, it's interesting. The male elephants call the bulls, and the females are cows, and they both have a way of attracting but also seeking out mates. And the main sense involved in that is the sense of smell. But then there is also a low frequency form of communication that the female does when she is in heat. And if there are any male elephants in and around the area, they can also pick up on that. And they will actively go and seek out those females, or at least the herds that they travel with. As they move along, they have a scent trail. Sometimes you might find these big bull elephants just move into a herd and they physically go and they test. They test the scent of dung, of urine puddles, of the female's physical back end when they're near, and all of that gives them some chemical clues to whether the female might be in heat or not. Eric Sherlink, you're saying hello from Amsterdam. Hello to you too, all the way here from Africa. And Dark Main Lover, good afternoon to you too. And then we've got another person from the Netherlands, Ari, saying good afternoon. Good to you, Ari, there in the Netherlands. And Eric Sherling, you are asking what elephants use their tusks for. Now, this is quite a interesting question to answer because in reality, they use their tusks for anything really, as a tool. It's funny, elephants, to the dexterity of their trunk, they consider tool users, but the trunk certainly aids as that, but it's also an organ and a extension of the body, and similar to the tusk. The tusk is not an organ, a tooth, of course, but it definitely gets used as a tool to move stuff, to break stuff off, to strip things like bark, stuff to break branches, and that's where they can add more to their diet. So, another thing that the elephants also use their tusks for, especially the bulls, is for fighting, protecting themselves. That way they can see others at bay, they can use it to attack another animal should they have to, or a threat. It's not only those big feet and heavy bulk, but the tusks certainly serve as very, very effective weapons. But it's also this use that makes them get worn, and wear down. And that's why we have differences in their shapes, their sizes. You can see even with this elephant bull we're looking at currently, if you look carefully to the left side, the elephant's right tusk, versus our right hand side, the elephant's left tusk, we can see that the tips of these two tusks differ quite a bit. Even though this elephant has rather decent sized tusks, it doesn't look ancient to me, and the tusks aren't that thick at the base. I think he's still got a little bit of growing to do, but the tusks have also been worn down, especially the elephants, especially the left tusk on our right hand side. You see the tip looks slightly blunter, it's got a bit of a different shape, less sharp than the one on the left. And that goes to show you've been using that maybe for digging or stripping bark, and gradually it gets worn. Maybe the elephant prefers using that tusk. So we'll often find that the tusks look quite dirty due to mud and so forth. And where they've stripped plant matter, where they've used them to dig, you might find that the tips are often a little bit whiter than the rest of the tusk. Just have a look and see the other elephant is wandering over to what seems to be the water inlet. There we go. Going to have a drink. Now that we have these two slightly closer together, we can clearly see that there's a bit of a size difference. Yes, of course, the camera influences our angles are not perfect. This elephant definitely seems to have come around to the cleaner water there, directly from the source. So Andy Franklin, sorry, not Andy Franklin, got in the S for some reason. Andy, you are asking, you're saying that you saw elephants digging in a hole earlier, and when the one stopped, the next one came in to dig further in the same hole. And then you're asking if they dug for water. Now, my guess would be very likely that they did dig for water. And I am assuming it's because they wanted to drink the filtered clean water. But now that I look at these holes dug here, these three holes off to the side, you can see the one on the right and the far left, very deep. And often with these holes, they might also just be digging for mud or loosening mud in there. But if the elephant wasn't mudding itself afterwards, then very likely they were going for water, like that one is going for there. So this first elephant might have opened, pushed all those rocks out of the way. You can see that looks like bricks, not rocks. Quite clearly square shape, or rectangular shape, sorry, not square shape. And I can see a bit of the holes, like our standard large building bricks, often used in reserves and areas. We use them to pack and hide these pipes from this exact situation. But of course, once we have rain, once we have a lot of moisture moving to the area, then of course the soils become saturated, they become soggy and soft. And that's when we find the elephants come in and they break open these pipes for ease. And that's probably what happened here, or it looks like that's what happened. You can see there's some activity where this elephant drinking from the source is standing with its front feet. You can see there's a dip there, so it looks to me like they've dug, picked up all the bricks and rocks, opened it up. Yeah, easy access to good drinking water. Sandy Franklin, you're also asking what the difference is between a horn and a tusk. Good question. So elephants have got tusks. The impala that we saw earlier has got horns. And have a look. This elephant is mudding himself. He's deep down in one of these dug holes. He would have used his tusks as an aid to help him with that, should he be the one that dug that hole. But I'm sure other elephants did, and he's just using the mud they've loosened up. But that's what's happened sometimes is the tusks and the horns can be used for similar things in some regards, but a tusk is essentially a tooth, an extended tooth that is visible outside of the animal's mouth. And what's interesting about the elephant tusks is their tusks are, if I'm not mistaken, incisors grown in that length. And then you get horns. Horns are usually either on the nose, as in the rhino's case, or on the head, as in the impala and nyala's case. And horns is a bone extension. It grows out of the skull, or in rhino's case, it grows from essentially a cuticle. Rhino horn is compressed keratin fiber, so the horn's made out of keratin all the way through. Same stuff with our fingernails, and it just becomes very, very solid, very tough. And as the animal utilizes it, rubs it down, and creates a sharp shape, sharp conical shape. But with impalas and other antelope, the horns grow directly from the skull, and then they have a cover made out of keratin. The cover of the horn, the outer keratin layer, is similar to that of the rhino horn, but there is a layer of air and fluid between the outer layer and the bony layer of the horn. And that helps with heat regulation, with impact regulation. So essentially, the horn is a bony outgrowth covered in keratin from the animal's skull, or from a cuticle, therefore from the animal's skin. And we also have that in giraffes, where they deposit dermal bone, the bone skin onto the cartilage-shaped ossicones. And the tusks are teeth. So what an amazing sight there to see this elephant utilizing all the loose soil there. This must be heaven currently for this big bull. It's got all the loose soil he wants. It's got mud there. It seems that these big animals on these very humid, overcast days, as this part of the country is, usually here in Maputo land, when it's very, very hot and humid, this happens. And they have means of mitigating and regulating their body heat and providing protection against the sun, and that's by using the loose soil. Excuse me. But this elephant has literally used soil from each and every hole here now. He's used mud from the one. And we can see that his ears is also going vigorously. There's a lot of dirt right up on the head and on the shoulders. Now, it's quite interesting. This elephant keeps using its foot to scoop the dirt onto the tip of its trunk. Maybe it's just because he's trying to maximize whatever soil he can grab in that small little tip. It's quite interesting. That little tip almost acts like fingers, and they can grab some soil, and they often do with dust especially. But when the soil is clumpy and wet like this, then you can they might want to try and get as much as possible to cover as large a possible area. While this elephant puts dust on himself and soil, we're going to head over to Shalati Sunrise, where we've got a buffalo. It looks like a little bit of a shy buffalo, but a buffalo indeed. And funnily enough, in the area that I am currently, they're quite elusive. This looks like a very big buffalo from what we can see. We don't have a clear view of the face as he's covered behind those reeds. But it looks like it is overcast. If I look at the water, there we go. We've got a bit of a glance. You can see the skin has gone around the upper eyes. Look at that lower jaw rotating in a circular motion. Half his body submerged in the water. Very brave indeed, as there might be crocodiles around, but he's very large, very old, judging from the well-worn boss. You can see it looks like pieces chipped off. It's thinned out, and it's got its worn horn tips. So this looks like an old buffalo bull. Very likely spends quite a bit of time on his own, and especially the heat of the day. He's filled himself up with grass in the mornings, and now he's just chewing his cud while relaxing and cooling down in the water. Hilary B from the UK. You're asking what is stronger, a tusk or a horn? That's a very good question. Hilary, I do not know actually, and I don't know if it is possible to say that in a generalized yes or no. I think it would depend on the animal size, of course. I'm pretty sure an elephant tusk is much stronger than an impala horn. But then you get different horns and you get different tusks. A warthog tusk, for instance, might not be as strong as a buffalo horn. In terms of density, I don't know. I think bone's a little bit more giving, meaning that they can handle hard, strong pressures quite well, and that they can bend a little bit to absorb impact. But I think a tooth is more dense. I'm not too sure, to be honest. I'll have to have a look. But it's an interesting question, very good question. I do think the short answer would be that it depends on the animal and it depends on the size of the animal. Rosie Adams, you're asking if elephants filter water for drinking with sand and so forth. Well, I don't think they necessarily do so themselves, but they certainly do drink the filtered water that comes through the soil that they're drinking. So when they dig in the riverbed, when they dig on the edges of pans, you find that the granules of the soil, depending on what type of soil it is, but as the water seeps through, it does get filtered to an extent, especially in the river sand. And often that water that they can access, especially if the riverbed is saturated, that water is rather clean. So sometimes they might even dig, wet themselves, and then let it stand a little bit before they move over to go drink and let the sediment settle. Ro from New York. A very good morning to you. 6 a.m. That's pretty early on your side. And a happy new year to you there. I see you saying happy new year to everyone this side and all the other viewers. Thank you very much for that. I'm sure it will be an amazing year this year. I think it will be very, very special. And yeah, what a privilege indeed to wake up and see beautiful wildlife like this buffalo. I think not always considered to be the most beautiful in the classic sense of the word, but they certainly are beautiful and fascinating. You can see those ears going vigorously, so I'm assuming even while he's in the water, he's still getting pestered by the flies. It's difficult to say for sure. He looked quite alert just now, staring out. Interesting that he's facing towards what seems to be towards the bank side, like where the vegetation is. He's obviously in the water, so he's facing upwards towards the land. Maybe an indication that that's his biggest threat for potential predators is arguably from the land. Interesting. It does mean that he's probably not considering any of the nearby crocodiles as a severe threat. Animal lover, you asking if buffalo are solitary creatures. That is something that I'd say depends on their age, also on their circumstances. You do sometimes find some solitary buffalo bulls like this one, where they might, whether it's by choice or due to its physical capabilities, sometimes animals with an injury or age related condition might tend to hang around certain areas and not always move with the herds. But they are social creatures, and where they can, they'll definitely join the group. However, these older bulls have much different dietary requirements. They might just join the herd for the purpose of trying to get to mate with some of the females, and in the other periods, they might move away, do their own thing, hang in areas where they don't constantly have to compete for rights and just take it easy. In that case, we find them as solitary animals. They still prefer company, I think more so from a vigilance point of view and safety point of view. They might spend some time with one or two others in a similar position to them. I've even come across cows on their own here and there, depending on the area and the available resources. Also, the condition of the animal, whether she might be pregnant. But from what I can see here, it looks like this one is a solitary one. And probably been feeding and spending time in and around this area over the last few days. And who wouldn't if you can cool down in a riverbed like this? But quite relaxed. I don't think he's going to move very quickly. He looks like he's enjoying himself there. So we're going to go see what's happening at Rosie's pan. Oh, wow. We've got a beautiful high view of an elephant bull. Let's have a look. We can see this elephant is testing the water here. Looks like he's grabbing mud down and shaking it around more so than drinking. By the looks of it, the water's quite an interesting greenish color. I've noticed now after the rains have returned, we had a very dry spell after the first bit of rain, and it looked like we had some algal blooms. The red green algae in some of these watering holes, and I have noticed that animals don't come down to drink as often, especially not since there are other watering holes that's now readily available. But there we go. You can see he's still drinking. And this is quite interesting to watch. When he arrived, he grabbed the mud, obviously, from low down. He is thirsty, and that's why he's here. But have a look, he's not gulping it up, if I would imagine. And he is stirring up the surface quite a bit. Maybe he's trying to open up a clearer patch of water. I wonder if he's going to continue or if he might just decide to move along. There we go. So that's interesting to watch. Like I said, I haven't seen many of these animals around greenish watering hole lately, and I'm assuming it's because of that algal bloom. The conditions were perfect, it was warm, there was still lots of debris and other substances that came from animals. These watering holes were heavily utilized at the end of the dry season before the rains came. You can imagine all those animal bodies in that water without the water ever getting cleaned. That in effect provided the perfect conditions for the bacteria to grow. Let's see what that elephant does. He's just drinking. He looks finicky about it, but he just seems to be drinking. Let's see. This one's moving off. What a nice view. You can see all the dirt on the back and the head there. You can see the folds in that thick skin. He looks like he's moving along, just stopping briefly to investigate something. Let's see. This elephant's also wetting himself now. Also not awfully excited to drink the water. And also decided to move on. Now, it's interesting to see. I'm not sure if it is 100% because of the bacteria in the water, but also these elephants didn't seem too interested for too long, so maybe they do have another water source not too far from here to know about. And that's why they just drank a little bit. He was having a stop to grab some green grass. It was growing in the shade there. It's quite amazing to see. Larger bull and a younger bull keeping it company, similar to what we saw at Tembe earlier. But what I really find spectacular about rosy span now, and here in the Olifants West, as we can see how green it's become over the past few days, and how the rains brought life into this area. Sandy Franklin, you saying that you think that the elephants really must realign landscape and rearrange it a little bit. Well, if you look at that dead tree right there, that is testament to their realignment and their rearrangement. Look at all those broken trees, dead trees pushed over. I'm not saying all of it is them for sure, but I think it's a safe assumption to make that a lot of them are. Elephants tend to debark trees, and that tends to kill the tree off, and then the tree eventually dies, breaks, and falls down. And when that happens, the tree opens up space. Sunny spot that was covering some patches where grass could have grown. So, in that regard, the elephant is regarded as what we refer to as an ecosystem engineer, an animal that significantly affects the ecosystem. An elephant in itself is a walking ecosystem, to be honest. And there we have a starling taking a bath. It's difficult to say whether this is a Cape glossy starling or a greater blue, while wetting and washing himself. And now he's disappeared. But elephants, indeed, they do shape the landscape, they do rearrange it, they facilitate the growing of grass, so opening up denser areas and creating grasslands. And they are massive, massive ecosystem engineers, especially in their large numbers, but they are also an ecosystem moving on its own in a sense. Here we go. Looks like maybe a greater blue-eared. Oh, and a little blue waxbill coming down to the water's edge. What a beautiful little bird. And little in every sense of the word. I mean, the blue-eared starling isn't a bird, but compared to it, you can see how tiny that little blue waxbill is. But since we looking at some of the birds here, I heard there is a very beautiful lilac-breasted roller at Lantori in Kenya. So let's go and see what East Africa's got in terms of the birds. Beautiful. Have a look at the bright colors. Quite a contrast in the weather here. Looks like a hot sunny day here where we are at Lentore. You can see the beautiful bright blue pinkish marking. Oh, and what is that? A white-browed sparrow weaver. Now what this roller would do, looks like he's recently had a molt in some of the feathers, but what this roller would do is sit up on a perch like this and watch for insects and then swoop down and try and catch them. What a beautiful bird, contrasted against the white cloud in the background. Yeah, indeed, looked like a white-browed sparrow weaver from what I saw. He's coming to check it out. Maybe it was just looking for a brief bit of shade. But now what happens, so birds flown off, but occasionally they do come back to the same perch. And you can see the long thorns on that acacia. There we have another little bird hiding away. What is that? That looks like it might be a starling of some sort, arguably a superb starling. I don't see. It looks like it might be. Looks like it might be a superb starling. You can see he's sitting a little bit higher up, covered by the branches. But have a look, he's still scoping the area out. And carefully, oh, there you can see the sunlight lighting up the eye. Certainly having a good scan for anything that might come into the tree, into the shady spot. Little insects, also other birds. So we do find this time of the day the birds are rather quiet and there's a bit of a wing stretch and a leg stretch. And they'll try and find spots to hide from the heat of the day and take a bit of a rest. There we go. Now I can clearly see that iridescent blue, the black of the head getting lit up. Indeed, it does look like a starling, and superb indeed, as the name says. Dark mane lover, you're also saying that it's a very beautiful bird and you love all the colors. I agree. I think that is one thing of East Africa is the variety of the birds there and its beauty. And I find you have a lot of similar birds to South Africa, but they're just that little bit different and there's more of each species. Sandy Franklin, you're asking why rollers are called rollers. Good question. They actually do a role in their display. So the males, when there's two males and they keep an area or a territory at the top of a tree, should they want to attract females, they do these athletic displays to try and show off how capable they are. And those are called rolls. And it entails them flying up and then they actually do a roll a circular roll, and then they come down with this gradual side to side movement, almost looking like a aeroplane going down. Now, there's two questions I saw that I got earlier that I missed. One was what other animals have the strength to push down trees? Well, that depends usually on the size of an animal, and this is quite interesting because, in that regard, I guess many bodies working together can have the same effect. I find that you get these larger creatures like rhino, potentially buffalo. They might be able to push over smaller trees, not quite as large as those that the elephant push over, but they certainly do, and they move them around. And then you have much smaller creatures like termites. Termites, when they get into a tree that's bark's damaged, along with wood borer beetles, they can eventually kill the tree, and then from there the termites will take over, and eventually that tree will fall down. So in that regard, they also take out, they also recycle it, take all that nutrients back into the soil, and complete the circle of life for the tree. Well, it looks like we lost Lentore, so we're back at Tembi, where we've got a lone standing termite mound out in the middle of this beautiful green Eden. Just look at that. And that termite mound, throughout the seasons and the seasonal changes it's been around, it's changed the shape slightly. Often after the rain, we find that the soil's soft, and you find that elephants, rhino, other larger creatures might move over. And have a look, it's so beautiful and standing out. Even that impala thinks that it's worth staring at. Oh, no, I saw it moving there, seeing something else. Maybe a predator? Or maybe something it's not sure about. Have a look. So, standing very focused, ears facing forward in the direction of whatever it's unsure about. I saw the tail moving, and I saw the head moving a little bit, so it was blowing out air, doing a snort, and issuing an alarm call, as we refer to it, but it's basically just something that they do for anything they're unsure about or can't see clearly, and for a predator, it would tell the predator that they can see the predator. Now, I've just been told by the team that the impalas were alarming at something and snorting, so they might have actually seen something, a potential predator, which would be very, very cool to see here. And you never know what happens. Sometimes is they do spot something, but if they're not 100% sure, they might still call. But you can see that impala is still very much focused. I think it's definitely seeing something. You can see, look at the whole body shaking as it's calling. Now that might seem a little bit counterintuitive, going towards the threat. But in a case like this, where it's open, out in the open, the impala, with sees whatever the potential danger is, it certainly has the advantage. It's got the speed, it can run away, and generally chances are very little for the predator to be able to have success in hunting that particular animal. You can see, of course, the elephant, on the other hand, they don't have nearly the same level of concern. They are quite large. Most predators would be pretty stupid to think that they can take on one of these elephants on their own. But the question remains, what is this impala seeing? Maybe something around there. Now I'm very, very intrigued. I would love to see a predator around this watering hole. I've got a particular fondness of Tembe and its watering hole, and I've never had the privilege of seeing any predators here, but it would be quite tricky. If it was something like a leopard, for instance, it would be very tricky. And leopards in these regions are well known to be almost like ghosts. You hardly ever get to see them, even though they're there. But then again, a chance that there might be lion. I know Tembe's got some lion. And the lion occasionally does come down to these watering holes where they come and have a look to see what's around. Of course, when they come down, generally nothing else does. But whatever it is, it might have decided against moving out into the open when it got spotted by the impalas, and of course, realizing that there's a lot of elephant around, maybe it's giving it a bit of a break and just staying up there. But I certainly don't see anything from where I am. Still very exciting. Just the idea that there might be a predator lurking somewhere amongst that thick bush is a very exciting thought indeed. For a moment there, I just thought it's that beautiful termite mound. I hope that wasn't what they were snorting at or shouting at. You can see all the woolly neck stalks also don't seem to have too much of a concern. Then again, the animals come to these open patches because they feel safer there. It provides them with a chance to spot danger where away from these patches, this area is rather dense, especially this time of the year. And just look at them. The big one back at the water inlet. Now that one there on the left, I was watching that one earlier. And I wasn't sure whether that's a male or a female. We were talking about, you can see the jacanas there, and the haridas, the geese. But we were talking about elephants. How do elephant bulls know when the females are in heat? And sometimes you find that when females are in heat, they might break away from the herd actually and go look for bulls. And then sometimes you find them, they move into areas like around the water. They come and they hang out, so to speak, a little bit with some of these more solitary elephant bulls or smaller groups of elephant bulls. But now standing at that angle, it looks like a bull again. Maybe it was just a weird angle that I saw just now. But definitely a bull elephant. Mudding itself. You can see that pan looks like it's been used for wallowing and covering themselves with mud. I can see lots of little patches where the reeds have been pushed aside and these little mud pools that's formed off on the edges. Those are all due to the very, very good available mud on that side, vital to these elephants cooling themselves down. Chris Salsa, he's saying some big boys here. Indeed, it looks like there's a few big elephant bulls here. You can see they all have decent sized tusks. These ones all look mature. And they've also moved in and they look like they're here to stay for a little while. When elephant bulls move into an area like this, I wouldn't be surprised if they come and stay in and around this area for a while. You can see, except for that patch, it's covered by dirt on the back. This elephant is now almost completely covered in mud, and a very dark, deep color in this region under these sandier soils. And that's why often these Tembe elephants have quite a dark hue to their skin color. This elephant is doing the same. It must be extremely hot there. You're resting and just standing around, like a lot of the time's been spent cooling down, covering up. So while these elephants are cooling down, we're going to head over to a group of elephants at Olifants River and see how they're doing there in the low veld. Beautiful. Just spectacular. Group of elephants. Looks like also a few young bulls in this case. Standing under what seems to be a magnificent sycamore fig. That is a very big tree indeed. Beautiful, beautiful waterside trees. And there are some truly ancient ones along the big rivers in the region of the Kruger National Park or the South African Lowveld. You can see this one certainly had some removed and washed away. You can see where some older roots have been exposed. Generally, these trees grow closer to the water, almost right on the banks. And it goes to show how over the years the river levels might have dropped as the river became deeper over time. And you can see the two on the side playing, pushing each other around, quite a common sight in this region. Within these groups of young elephant bulls, they often have to establish a bit of a hierarchy, and that's what when we see these guys pushing and playing, it's more so just to exercise a bit of their strength rather than fighting. They continue, but that is quite a spectacular spot. The river looks rather full as well. You can see all those little game paths, hundreds of game paths coming. Those two elephants are really getting into their game now. You can see some more beautiful sycamore figs right on the water's edge there. What a spectacular little spot here. Providing decent shade with the big, big, broad leaves. Perfect spot for the elephants to rest this time of the day. But unfortunately, if you're a young elephant bull and you hang out with other young elephant bulls, there's never any real rest. Animal lover, you asking if they play fight for fun? They do, actually. They do it for fun. In the animal world, everything is always with a reason to an extent. Energy doesn't get expended for no reason, but they do it for fun. That's for sure. This way they get to not only know each other, they form bonds this way, but they also do test their strength and establish who's the bigger, slightly stronger animal. Which maybe at this age is not that important, but in the years to come, it's quite important, especially when there's mating rights involved. Hilary B, you are asking if termites have a reason for building their mounds where they do. Indeed, they do. Usually, they need a water source, which can be quite deep down in some cases. But if they have the right soils with the right amount of clay in them, and they have access to a water source, then that's usually where they'll build them. And often what they also might do to save energy is they might recolonize old mounds. Mounds that we might not always realize as mounds until they start building and adding to them, and suddenly you have a new mound popping up. Just have a look at this. These elephants have found a little piece of Eden here, right next to the water. It's also overcast in this region. We had some rain. I'm not too far from the area of Olifants West. A little bit further south, it looks like there's some good rain and overcast weather that's moved through the area last night. But while the elephants are playing out here in the bush veld, we're going to head over to some dassies at Stony Point. And have a look at that. The definition of being a parent, I guess. The wind from all sides, and the kids all on top of you. You can see the sheer determination of that larger dassie, making sure that the coast is clear. Vigilant as ever, while the little ones can relax. Now, with the wind blowing there, I do know that it can get quite cold, especially out there on the rocks. And with these hyraxes, it's important they do use sunlight and they bask a large amount of time of the day. It not only aids them with their regulation of their body temperature, but it also helps them to an extent with their digestion. So on cooler days, you'll find that they do huddle together like this for warmth. But a good spot. Oh, what a relaxed scene. Now, these little guys have excellent eyesight, very, very capable of spotting predators from far away. And their numbers adding to their vigilance. So if anything nearby should stir that might be a potential threat or something that they might be unsure about, then you'll find they'll turn around and they'll run straight into those cracks and holes behind them. It looks like 3 little ones that I can see. 1, 2 down below, the one on top. There's a good little scratch there. Oh, okay. Giving the adult a bit of a break. This is interesting. That's quite an interesting pose. I can't see clearly whether it's a female. But it looks like it's just repositioned. with its head out of the wind. You can see the little ones are all over. There's unique markings in the rock, almost perfectly aligned with the shape of these dassies. Perfectly fits them. What a spot. You can see we do have quite a clear view of those interesting feet of theirs. It allows them to be very agile, even though they have such an odd shape. Joan Mello, you saying a happy Sunday to Wild Earth and to me. Thank you very much. Happy Sunday to you too. I hope it's been a wonderful day this far, and I hope it continues to be so. There's a rather interesting scene. Well, I can't see too clearly what's happening here. All I can see is that the fur's moving in the wind. There's another one coming in. Looks like another small one. Oof, and there's a shadow approaching from above. Looks like maybe another. There we go. Another dassie checking it out. This one looks like it just woke up from a nice nap in the sun. Or maybe the sun is the reason why it woke up. Looks slightly overcast, and as the cloud moved away, there's a bit of a scratch and a groove. Biting along the limb between the fur like that, often skin parasites make them itch, and the only way to get at it is to either scratch or, even better, give it a quick nibble. Rosie Adams, hooray, it is Stony Point. And the dassies are indeed lazying it out here on the rocks today. Dassie, interesting word, dassie, they're actually hyraxes or rock hyraxes. And the word dassie coming from the Old Dutch word dassen, which I'm not 100% sure where that stems from, but as in Afrikaans in South Africa, a lot of the words are often turned to diminutives, and for that reason, dassen turned into dassie. Just have a look at that beautifully clear view of the water. What a spectacular spot. A perfect natural little harbor. There we go, we've got some cormorants there and some gulls. Looks like maybe some heartlabs, gulls. I can't see the cormorant too clearly which ones they are. It's probably a combination of a few. Rosie Adams, you are also saying it's a beautiful, beautiful here at Betty's Bay. Indeed it is. It is very, very beautiful here, especially on a day like this. A little bit windy, but that's about it. Just have a look at that. You can see those rocks are white. You can see the birds are all over. There's some penguins back there. and some Egyptian geese, if I'm not mistaken. Fancy seeing them there. They seem to be everywhere. Animal lover, you asking if these birds migrate. Now, they generally don't. They are generally here all year round. Most of these birds tend to stay in these areas, and these areas are known for it. And you can see by the looks of those rocks that those are their regular roosting spots, spots that they find safe. I think most of those birds there are very likely Cape cormorants. And of course, the penguins are protected here in this nature reserve along this coastline. They've got the kelp forest around. You can see all the dried out kelp that washes out there. So those provide the perfect hunting habitats for them and for all of these birds. And that's why this is a very, very important strip of the coastline, essential for these birds' survival and well-being. What a beautiful day. Just look at all those penguins. A lot of them standing out basking in the sun. Beautiful, beautiful day indeed here at Betty's Bay. And from the beautiful shoreline of South Africa, we're going to head back to the bushveld and go have a look at some impalas drinking. All the way from Stony Point to the Timbavati, where we've got quite a very large group of impala drinking from the water's edge. Looks like some of them are also just relaxing and feeding a little bit. Not too bothered. Middle of the day, so the predators should mostly be laying, but just look at all those little ones there. Lots of nervous little impalas. You can see very interested in each other and everything around them. Already you can see the braver ones of the group stepping up to the water's edge. And over the last few weeks, we have been lucky to start to see these little ones emerge in quite large numbers in areas, but also gradually starting to band together, forming their nurseries or creches. And they beautiful, beautiful little groups patches of red scattered all along the green vegetation line. Now you can see naturally impalas are always nervous near the water's edge. There's always potential danger, either approaching from somewhere or from within the water. Although I think they know quite well that within this water there's no immediate danger. But these little impalas are now starting to group together. And as I said, they form these nurseries that lead to them gradually getting used to and fitting into the herd life, joining in on herd activities, general movements of the herds. And of course, it provides them with safety. Rosie Adams, it is indeed a very, very beautiful gathering. Well, there's quite a few. I've been trying to, in the moments I go quiet, I've been trying to count them quickly. It's been very difficult with them moving in and out. So a rough count from what I can see here is about 21. I'm sure this herd is much larger. As I can see, there's more coming in from either side. But these impala herds can be quite significant, and they do gather in these open patches, always near water. The impalas are always near water. So on hot, humid days like today, I sometimes find that they might move and stick closer to the watering holes if it's available, coming to drink regularly, late morning, middle of the day, later in the afternoon. But I think while they're nearby here, they might utilize this water source to feed, utilize the time to feed later on when it's cooled down. Now, very, very exciting times, of course, when the little ones are around and forming these groups for predators, of course. Also a very nervous time for mother impalas. But you do find this time of the year, predators, even large predators, they go after these baby impalas. A significant number of them do not make it through their first year. Therefore, they have numbers and they try to synchronize and get the mating and the birthing season more or less over the same period, so that there's so many that the offspring can stand a chance of survival. And therefore, the survival of the herd is regarded as the important factor. Jules, you're asking if there's crocs in the water. Jules, I'm hesitant to say 100% no. You never know, but I don't think there is. To be honest, I think they're just naturally nervous, and that's why they're checking out due to that instinctual fear of the water for the crocodile. But I don't think there's any crocs in this water. I think this is just a pan around the camp. And the crocodile probably not deep enough for the croc to stay in. But Pretty soon from now, we should also start to see from these little impala, the males will start having their horns, the tip of their horns show, and then we'll start to see a little bit of playful fighting even from the young age. Always a very, very interesting period or time to watch them and see them. You can see that they're very nervous. That one on the right there, not quite finding its footing in the right spot to drink. Now he's watching the others. In the background, the females are moving off. You can see it's a relaxed period. Like there's a lot of chewing the cud going on by the larger ones at the back. So I'm assuming that they are very relaxed and resting in this period. They've probably been spending a bit of time here today. But look at those little heads and ears pointing forward, focused on everything, taking in everything. Imagine the speed of learning, that the amount of learning that these little ones have to pick up in this first month. All essential, making sure that they stay alive. They drop away, chances are they won't make it. The group's everything in their lives, whether they want it to be or not. Oh, what a beautiful view. Timbavati's also greened up nicely over the past few weeks. I think they've had a little bit of rain. Still can do with more rain, but thankfully, though, we haven't had major downpours in this area that leads to floods yet. It's been gradual here and there, but we definitely need more rain, and we're hoping over the next month so we'll start to receive some of that more regularly. One thing I've noticed is in the past 10 years or so, the weather patterns in this region have been shifting a little bit later than usual, almost an extension of the dry season. In the months from August to end of October, sometimes halfway through November, can be quite harsh in terms of the heat, in terms of the available water. And then you have moments like this where everything is in abundance. You see those impala females standing there chewing the cud. You can see those eyes are almost closed, quite relaxed, just focusing on ruminating. And once again, you can see that one of the benefits of life in a group or a herd, relying on the vigilance of others. And up until this age, or up until now, we can still see the difference in the ages of some of these impala, these little ones. And they might be born maybe 2 to 3 weeks difference between the different ages and still visible. Slightly larger ones, moving a little bit better, higher by the shoulder. You see those tiny, tiny ones, and then often what you'll find a little bit later in the season, even into the new years, you find a few late ones. And those ones usually stand out, tiny, tiny little animal, and they often get picked off by predators at that point. And this has been quite spectacular. Quite a nice opportunity to get a close-up view of this herd of impala. And talking about this large group, I think we're going to head back to Lentori, where we've got a big group of baboons. And hopefully we can view their antics. Whoa, scene. A hammerkop right in front on our left here, just casually sitting, trying to hide in plain sight. Two big baboons drinking behind him. So that big baboon came over and just pushed the other one out of the shade into the sun. And clearly have a little bit of a higher rank. Let's see, another big one coming over. Up, and there we go. I can clearly see which ones are the important ones here. But what a good spot. One impala there in the background, waiting for its chance to come and have a drink. Let's see if that happens. And these baboons look like they're pretty settled in. Some of them quite thirsty. These two here on the left have been drinking quite a while. The hammerkop just moving here at the bottom screen. The last time I saw this troop around this watering hole here, it was quite funny because there was this hammerkop did show itself, and they usually stick around these watering holes when they are there, but it's quite a it kind of hides in plain sight, and it's such an odd looking bird, such a drab color, but they're so interesting to watch. So I'm happy we got to get a good view of it there. But this is quite a big troop. I don't know how many by quick rough count. It's about 25 odd animals at least. And judging from the amount of very large males sitting with their entourage near the water's edge, enjoying the good life of high-level baboon society. I'm sure this troop is even larger. We've got available water here. Don't know what that baboon was doing. Looked like almost like he was shooing some kind of a biting ant or a fly or maybe something else, maybe a wasp. Lots of stinging insects also get attracted to the water's edge, and sometimes you do see that when these baboons are nearby, they get a a sting from something. And once they're done drinking, they go and they pack themselves out back into the shade. You can see the back there, the bigger baboons, they're getting very, very nicely groomed by the females all throughout that harder to reach areas around the head, back of the neck. Hamerkop gave him a bit of a fright there. Hillary B, I'm very happy to hear that you enjoyed today's show. I have indeed. I've been having a lot of fun, and I'm actually, like, I'm really, really enjoying the fact that we got to see some group animals. The impalas, the baboons here. Looks like this little baboon here, closest on the left, looks like he got a bit of a skin issue. Not sure exactly what that might be. But the troop seems quite peaceful today. Normally, in a large troop like this, you have a lot of interaction between the members and have a lot of issues as well, political issues in and amongst the members. A little bit of tension building, and then a fight here and there. And sometimes the little ones do get in the way, unfortunately. But do something else. Now you can see he's quite conscious of the fact that that exposed bit gets bitten by some of the flies and flying insects, and seems quite sensitive. Joan Mello, you're saying your buddies the baboons. Yes, indeed. The baboons are our buddies. I'm very happy to hear that you're enjoying them so much that you would call them your buddies. I know some people might not, especially people often living near or close to them. They might not always consider them buddies. But I can tell you that people tend to develop a healthy respect for them quite quickly, and they should. Very, very intelligent animals, very sharp, and obviously able to survive in a very, very wide variety of habitats. So extremely adaptable. One of the ways they do that is by taking complete advantage of a situation, like in this case, water and shade. Hilary B, you asking if all ruminants are ruminating in the same direction with their mouth? That's a good question. I don't know. I've never actually thought about it, to be honest. I always thought that it depends on whatever side they put the bolus. They might go clockwise or anti-clockwise, and then stick in that direction for a little bit, and then maybe swipe over. But that's a very good question, and it's something that I'll have to go and have a look at and do a bit of research, see if I might get something more useful on that. Maybe it isn't just a circumstantial thing. Maybe there is a very, very set direction due to some physiological adaptation. But yeah, I don't know. I do know that they don't have any incisors in their top jaw in the front, so they have to move whatever they clip off with their bottom incisors all the way to the back to the molars, and then that's where the food gets crushed and masticated, and also where the saliva mixes with it through the use of the tongue. You're talking about herbivores like those impalas there at the back. One of the adaptations baboons have is they are omnivorous. They don't only eat plant material, they also go after other protein. Look, there we go. It looks like there was a bit of an upset. You can see the impala gladly grabbed that opportunity for a drink while the gaps opened. But yeah, that way each animal, each group of creatures have the adaptations to help them adapt over various different landscapes. One of the best things about live at the watering hole is that we get to see different animals at different areas, or similar animals in different areas. Not always exactly the same species, but each area has its animals with similar niches. What a privilege to be able to see animals in their natural environment in different areas. And I would like to thank all our viewers for joining us this afternoon. And I hope to see you again tomorrow afternoon. From all of us at Wild Earth, good afternoon.